So, how do you evaluate expert advice without losing yourself? This can be a tough one. So, what you need is a framework. And if you ask yourself the following questions, I think you'll gain greater clarity on this situation. Number one is, does it align with your core values? Some of my core values that would certainly come into play are autonomy, integrity, and freedom. Now, this does not necessarily mean that just because the expert advice doesn't really match up with what I believe or what my definitions of freedom and autonomy and integrity are, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a complete deal breaker. There's more questions I would need to ask. There's more things I would need to consider to see if it's in alignment with what I want. However, if someone came to me and said, well, the best way to deal with your situation is work 80 hours a week for $40,000 a year, I'm going to have some questions. Number two, does it respect your unique wiring and personality? So much of the advice going around out there is anybody could do this, everybody should be doing this. And the bottom line is some people are actually going to be very miserable doing the kinds of things that experts are recommending that you do. I'm not here to criticize anyone specifically or anyone's business model. Truly, if network marketing is right for you, get into it, but you got to know that it's in alignment with what you want to do and who you are. I'm a naturally creative person, so the things that I do best, I generally do alone. Doesn't mean I have to work alone, doesn't mean that I prefer to be alone all the time. But if I'm going to practice guitar, produce music, write, make art, most of that is going to happen in isolation. Again, it doesn't mean I can't do it with partners and friends and other musicians and other collaborators, but a lot of the work does happen alone. And so, whatever opportunity or advice it is I'm considering, I'm going to have to look at whether it's a good match or a good fit. If their opportunity is primarily for people that are out all the time interacting with various social groups, going to clubs, going to bars, going to parties, going to networking events, that's just not me. And trying to orient my life around that is actually just going to add a whole bunch of stress. Number three, is it a tool or a complete system? This is a really interesting one because so much of what we're fed, expert advice wise, is a technique. And here's the problem: a technique might get you the date, pickup lines, what to say to a woman, what to say to a man, whatever it might be. And then 3, 4, 5 dates in, you suddenly realize you're in a relationship. You're not dating anymore. So all the things that kind of worked to help you get the attention that you were looking to get in the first place almost have nothing to do with the new situation that you find yourself in. So a tool's neat, a tool's nice. We all need tools, but generally it's a tool stack. Most businesses I know incorporate and use a variety of tools, not just one, to make their thing work. If I know I'm buying a tool, that's fine. But then I have to know that it only does one thing or only does a few things well. It's not going to do everything. A complete system, on the other hand, is going to be a more comprehensive approach, giving me the steps I need to fulfill on the exact process, the frameworks, the templates. It doesn't leave me in the dark as far as what to do next. Number four, does the advice make me more dependent or does it empower the independence that I'm trying to create and have been creating? Now, again, I'm not picking on anyone. I'm not criticizing anyone's business model. In fact, I understand the quote unquote ascension model quite well, bringing people into maybe an entry tier program or a mid tier program and eventually giving them more. Customers do tend to buy more. That's just the way it works. If I want to keep up a relationship with my customers, I have to introduce something new all the time. That's the way it works. People leave when there's nothing more to buy. But for me, I definitely find it important to look at whether this advice makes me more dependent on the person giving it in the first place. Because what that means is I'm going to have to buy additional coaching. I might have to buy their book. I might have to buy their course, and I might have to buy the next course. And before you know it, I'm struggling in different areas without really being able to identify the exact thing that I'm struggling with. Also, knowing how to hit a target. So much of the advice out there is very general. So if you're given a script and say, hey, use this script to sell people on your product, if you don't know why that script works or why you need to say things a certain way, that can actually be disempowering. When that why question is sufficiently answered, your belief level goes up. Number five, Does the advice have a clear, measurable outcome I can define? What is the advice designed to help me achieve and in what scenario? And more importantly, is this something the experts say I should want, or is it something that I want? Is there a result or an outcome that I want? Building an email list is a pretty clear objective overall. You may not know the how, but you certainly understand what it is and why it needs to be done. Where become a thought leader is a lot more nebulous. And what does that involve? And everybody seems to have an opinion. Very few people seem to have the solution. Number 6, does it encourage or allow for evolution, or is it just dogma that you have to follow no matter what? Another way of saying this is, does your teacher set you up to be able to surpass them, or are they gatekeeper to more knowledge that you need to get and purchase and work for in order to get to where you want to go? I'm not saying there's not a place and time for dogma. Sometimes it is important to have certain strict rules about things you're going to do and not going to do, especially things involving harm or harming self or harming others, or anything illegal or wrecking other people's relationships. It's okay to have a little bit of legalism around that kind of stuff. But if you're trying to squeeze yourself through a bottle that you can't really fit in the first place, you may end up having to resort to things like behavioral modification in order to act a certain way, to be a certain way, even when you're not naturally that kind of person, even when you're not really going to evolve into that kind of person. As an independent creative, your intuition is probably one of your greatest assets. And that intuition should certainly come into play when you're trying to decide whether expert advice is something that you need to take or should take in your particular scenario. I'm a big believer in having coaches and coaching, by the way. So I'm not saying don't get coaching. I'm not saying don't seek experts, but we have to have some kind of filtration system based on what's in alignment with us, as well as what our goals are. Basically, use people's advice as wisdom, not as gospel. Based on my experience, I think it's really important to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff, take the stuff that does work for you and leave the other stuff that doesn't work, isn't in alignment, isn't a match to who you are, what you're doing, what you're trying to create. We could probably all become the clone of our favorite guru if we tried, but that's not the goal. What's going to be most powerful at the end of the day is you being your most authentic and genuine you that you can be. So do you feel like you're lost in a sea of expert advice? Have you tried a whole bunch of things that never really worked for you? I helped multi-talented independents like you cut through the noise and come up with a strategy that's going to work for you. What's one piece of expert advice that you regret following? Or is there a piece of expert advice that genuinely changed your life and brought about a transformation that you're proud of? Leave a reply and let me know. I read every message.